Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. I threw up inside the rebreather. Hot, sour, chunky. The filter did its job, pulling the worst of it away, but the stench stayed in the helmet, like bile and old pennies forced back into my nose. My stomach was still heaving when the pod slammed sideways, ribs rattling against the harness. I clamped my teeth to keep the next wave down. Didn't help. Everyone says the first drop feels like dying. They weren't lying. A hell pod isn't a transport. It's a bullet you crawl inside, and then the ship fires you at a planet hoping you survive the landing. Metal screamed around me, lights strobing red, each one flashing like a countdown to my execution. I was just a cadet, lowest rank, my first real deployment. Training hadn't prepared me for how loud it would be, or how the G-forces pressed until my chest couldn't rise. The suit whispered readings in my ear, altitude, oxygen, hull integrity, but the numbers were nonsense through the fear. My hands were locked white on the rifle across my lap. Over comms, someone screamed. Someone else was praying. Nobody gave a pep talk. Nobody says you'll be fine on a drop. It's just orders and static and waiting for the slam. The pod tore atmosphere. My body shook like bones in a rattle. Teeth clacked. Helmet thunked hard against the padding. I pictured fire boiling around me, the pod glowing like a meteor, bugs on the ground watching the sky split and waiting for us to fall right into their claws. This is how it ends, I thought, splattered before I ever fire a shot. The hatch blew open with a thundercrack. Blinding white light cut in, searing my eyes through the visor. The pod tilted and spat me out into a storm of sand, gunfire, and inhuman screeches. For Super Earth, someone roared over comms. I hit the ground on my knees, rifle up, visor splattered with grit, my boots skidded in hot sand, heart hammering out of rhythm. And the first thing I saw wasn't the sky, or my squad, or even the wrecks around us. It was the swarm, black shapes rolling over the dunes, chittering, claws snapping, mandibles wet in the sun. God, they're everywhere. We landed in a graveyard. The outpost wasn't standing anymore, just bent radio dishes jutting from the sand like broken ribs, fence wire twisted into halos by the wind. Pods hid all around, some upright, some crumpled. One didn't open at all. I didn't look too close. Form the line, Sarge barked. His voice came flat in my bone mic, steady as a hammer. Cadet, safety off, keep it boring, 2-round burst. I tried. My hands shook so bad the rifle felt like a live animal. The ground already rattled under us. The chittering was constant, 1,000 scissors opening and closing. Then they came, cutters first, small and fast, snapping across the dunes in a black wave. Behind them, warriors rose, armored shoulders breaking the sand like moving boulders. We opened up. Vex's autocannon roared, the belt smoking. Rhea picked heads clean with calm little pops. Doc's bursts cut jaws off mid-snap. Nix held the line with slow, steady fire, even when acid ate into his boot. I panicked. First shots went wide, tracers slicing empty sky. Then one cutter leapt straight for my visor, legs stretched, belly pale and twitching. I punched without thinking, felt my glove crack shell, and jammed 3 rounds into its jaw as it slid off my chest plate. Black-green spray smeared my visor, smelled like bleach and burned sugar. No time to gag. Warriors smashed the fence and didn't slow. One opened its chest like a second mouth and spat acid, sand hissing where it landed. Vex met it face on, drove a belt up through the gap until the plates burst, then laughed like it was nothing. "Spitters!" Doc shouted. High on the ridge, tall necks unfolded, vomiting green arcs. A glob struck a half-buried rover, and the whole side sagged soft. Another volley came for us. "Down!" Sarge yelled. We ate sand. The spit went over and steamed. My ears rang with the sound like fat sizzling on a hot pan mixed with crying. "Cadet," Sarge said, calm as ever. "See the dish?" I looked. At the far end of the wreckage stood an uplink tower, dish bent, floodlight flickering. The lean-to at its base had been chewed open. "That's home," Sarge said. "We clear, we connect, we call toys." Nix popped a beacon, blue smoke punching skyward. A resupply crate slammed down seconds later, half its corner melted by spit, but still intact. He ran limping for it, grinning like a lunatic. We pushed hard, stepping over collapsed tents and twisted tarps that might not have been tarps. Cutters poured from under a loader. Rhea took them neat. Warriors lunged, and Vex carved them into wet chunks. I just kept the rifle at chest height, squeezing steady like Sarge drilled, boring as hell, but boring meant alive. We reached the tower's shadow. Inside smelled like rot and hot copper. Drag marks streaked the floor. A cutter twitched on the ceiling, half its head gone, still crawling after blood. Sarge dropped it with 1 round. "Cadet, uplink." My hands fumbled the cracked panel, bypassed the broken key with smart wire, praying under my breath. The HUD flickered green. Manual override engaged. Lights crawled across the spine of the array, blue and bright. "Incoming," the voice said. "Stratagem authorization granted." I tagged the coordinates. Orbit answered lazy. "Package away. Mind your hats." Outside, the sky ripped. Gas and fire stitched the slope, spitters curling into black husks, cutters stiffening mid-run. The field stank of sweet rot. We cleared the rest, guns smoking. For a second, in the flicker of blue flares, it looked like we'd made a clean place in the dirt. Then the ground thumped under my boots. Once, twice, something heavy moving deep. Dust rained from the tower beams. Sarge didn't flinch. "Dig in. Night's coming. They don't sleep." We dug fast. The trench wasn't neat, just sand, scrap metal, and stakes jammed deep until they hummed with current. Blue hellfire flares burned along the ridge, painting everything in cold light. My hands blistered inside the gloves, but the suit cooled me with icy gel. I still tasted bug acid. "Lines up," Sarge said. He didn't raise his voice. Never did. The night came quick. The dunes went dark, shadows moving wrong. Then the ground ticked through my boots. Far away at first, then closer, until the sand itself shook. Cutters spilled over the slope, claws scissoring. They hit the field and cooked, twitching in showers of sparks. Warriors followed, broad shells glowing as the current ate at them. Hold. Sarge's voice was iron. Vex's autocannon thundered, chewing the first warrior to mist. Rhea dropped cutters with neat taps. Nyx kept the belts feeding, even limping on his half-melted boot. I breathed, squeezed, breathed, making my rifle boring, like Sarge drilled. Then spitters rose on the ridge, necks unfolding. Acid rained down, tearing holes in the trench wall. One glob hissed past my shoulder, sprayed heat that burned through my sleeve. I hit the dirt, ears ringing. Gas! Sarge snapped. I popped a beacon. Seconds later, the strike lit the ridge white. Bugs stiffened mid-run, twitching statues. We shot the rest down, the air filled with the stink of burned sugar. That's when the new ones came. Spear-shaped, long and lean, fast as arrows. One punched over the trench, barbs rattling the panel it stuck into. Another slammed into Nyx. Its forelegs chewed into his glove, digging for the bone. He screamed, a raw, tearing sound. Doc shoved his rifle under its jaw and fired. The bug's head burst, spraying Nyx's visor black. Doc snapped a tourniquet tight above the wound. He'll live for now. The stakes flickered. My HUD spat errors. Field dropout. Impedance spike. They're pulling under, Rhea said. I felt it then. A deep, grinding scrape beneath us, huge and slow. The trench floor quivered. Seismos, cadet, Sarge said. I pulled up the scan. Red mass, tank-sized, curving straight for us. Tunnelers, Doc muttered. Sarge didn't blink. Claymores, inner lip. Vex with me. Cadet, shield and stakes. I threw the beacons. The shield capsule slammed down, rippling a dome of light over us. Fresh rods spat into the sand, humming. The thuds grew faster. 3 quick, pause, 3 quick, like it breathed in numbers. The trench floor erupted. Sand exploded, plates of bone spinning like saws. A mouth of drills and wet meat tore through, pulling air into its stink. Back, Sarge barked. We scrambled up the trench walls as the monster heaved through, smashing the shield. Vex emptied his belt straight into the spinning maw. Rhea's claymore's blue teeth of steel inside it, but it kept climbing. Cadet. Thunder. On my boots, Sarge ordered. My hands shook. If I missed, he died. I tagged the trench, package away. The sky split. Impact hit like a god's hammer. The dome shattered. Air turned solid. Then black rain fell. Bone shards, meat, grit that stung my visor. Silence after, except for Vex laughing wild. Nerves cracked. The trench was wrecked, half collapsed, shields fried. Bugs lingered at the edges but didn't push closer. They'd seen what killed their brother. Sarge scanned the dark horizon, head tilted like he was listening to the world. That was just a feeler, he said. Far off, something rumbled. Low, steady, like a drumbeat under the sand. The hive was awake. Orders came down quick. Destroy the hive cluster. No evac. No rest. Just grab Nix's gear, patch him enough to walk, and march toward the tunnel's bleeding black smoke on the horizon. The sand got softer as we closed in, like walking over lungs. The entrance gaped out of the earth, a split wound big enough to swallow a tank. Heat rolled from it. The stink of rot and ammonia slapped through my filter. Lights low, Sarge said. Noise discipline. We're ghosts until we aren't. We went in crouched, rifles high. The walls dripped resin, slick and glistening, like the earth itself had grown ribs. Eggs pulsed in the cracks, translucent, shapes twitching inside. Some had already burst. Shells lay split open, leaking clear slime. Every step made noise. Boots sucking in goo, gear rattling soft. My own breath sounded too loud. I tried to breathe shallow, but the suit kept pulling air through the mic, a hiss that echoed back at me. Doc muttered, "Hear that?" At first I thought it was the tunnel groaning. Then I caught it, soft chittering, layered like whispers. Not speech, just pheromone clicks bouncing in the dark. My stomach turned. We found the first bodies webbed to the ceiling, Helldivers, their armor half dissolved, hanging like trophies. One still twitched when the air moved, nerves firing long after death. Another had been cracked open from the chest out, ribs curled like fingers. Eyes front, Sarge said. They die. We learn. Move. We pressed deeper. The tunnel widened into a chamber pulsing with egg sacs. The floor writhed with larvae, pale and blind, snapping at our boots. Rhea kicked one away and it burst like rotten fruit. Then we heard the dragging, a private from another squad, helmet gone, face raw, screaming through blood. Two warriors had him by the legs, pulling him deeper into the nest. He clawed the floor until nails tore off, leaving trails of skin. His eyes found us. He didn't beg, just stared, knowing. Vex raised his cannon. Sarge pushed it down. Charges first, he said, voice flat, like mercy didn't exist down here. We planted satchels on the resin walls. Timers synced. My hands shook so bad I dropped one and had to fish it out of slime. Each second felt like it was daring me to fail. The bugs knew. You could feel it. The chamber hissed with them, eyes glinting, more bodies shifting in the dark. When the first cutter lunged, everything broke. Gunfire roared inside the hollow space, deafening. The walls lit up with muzzle flash. Acid spit rained. Vex spun his belt in a circle of death, cutting larvae and cutters to paste. I put bursts into shadows, barely aiming, just shapes that moved wrong. Timer's hot, Sarge shouted. Move. We sprinted, feet slipping in gore. The chamber screamed behind us, bugs boiling from every crack. The walls themselves seemed to crawl. Rhea fired controlled bursts, carving us a path. Doc half-carried Nix, who fired one-handed, face pale under his visor. We broke daylight as the charges blew. The ground heaved, air ripping hot from the tunnel mouth. Resin shards, dirt, and body parts sprayed into the sky. The roar went on, until it was just ringing in my ears. I lay in the sand, chest heaving, visor coated in filth. For a second, it felt like maybe we'd hurt them bad. Maybe we'd done something that mattered. Then the thumps came again, heavy, closer. Something had woken deeper than that chamber. Sarge stood, rifle low, eyes on the horizon. "We just kicked the Titan's nest," he said. The ground wouldn't stop shaking. Each thump rattled through my armor and up my teeth. Dust lifted from the dunes in little bursts. Whatever was coming wasn't a warrior, wasn't a spitter, wasn't a tunneler. This was bigger. We saw it crest the ridge. Titan class. The vids hadn't lied. Its shell was ridged like black stone, plates shifting as it moved. 9, maybe 10 meters tall, claws that could dig trenches on their own. Its roar hit first, low, tearing the air like a jet ripping past too close. My HUD spiked into red static from the vibration. "Hold fire until it commits," Sarge ordered. He said it calm, but his stance had weight, like even he felt the wrongness of it. The Titan charged. Sand exploded under each step. Warriors and cutters poured behind it, a living tide. We opened up. Vex anchored the line, autocannon spitting until smoke poured from the barrel. Rhea nailed warriors trying to flank, headshots neat in the chaos. Doc braced Nix against cover so he could keep a rifle up, even one-handed. I just held the trigger, bursts walking across the Titan's plates. The rounds bounced like rain. "Soft spots," Sarge shouted. "Joints, mouth, make it bleed." The Titan reared, chest splitting open. Acid sprayed in a wide fan. It hit a resupply crate, dissolving steel into bubbling slag. One splash hit a private too slow to duck. His scream cut off when his helmet collapsed inward, face and metal melting together. I aimed for the seam at its knee. Rounds sparked and slid until one found flesh. Black-green fluid spurted out, steaming. The Titan screamed again, higher this time, angrier. It swept a claw and sent 2 Helldivers flying like toys, their bodies snapping against wreckage. "Call Thunder," Sarge barked. I popped a beacon, tagged the Titan's bulk, package away. Orbit's polite voice felt insane against the chaos. The strike came down like the hand of God. White light, thunder, then dust. The Titan staggered, but didn't fall. Plates burned, one claw missing a chunk, but it kept moving. "Again," Sarge shouted. We threw everything, grenades, mines, raw hate. Vex walked his cannon straight into the Titan's open mouth, belt chewing until the barrel glowed white. The Titan finally buckled, collapsing with a roar that blew sand for 100 meters. Its body twitched, massive and broken, before going still. Silence after, just our breathing, labored and sharp. The battlefield stank of acid, blood, and cooked resin. Then came the clicking, not loud, not many, just echoes around us, deep and patient. The hive hadn't gone quiet. It was listening. Sarge looked over the smoking carcass, then at us. Half the squad was gone. What was left of us stood in gore up to our knees. "Rearm," he said, voice steady as ever. "We're not done." And in the distance, past the dunes, more shapes moved. Bigger than warriors, smaller than the Titan. enough to finish the job. We called for extraction the second the Titan stopped twitching. Uplink tower hummed, blue light steady. The polite voice in our ears said, "Shuttle inbound. Hold position." We held. That's what we did. Set a perimeter in the wreckage, sandbags half melted, ammo crates busted open. Nick sat propped against the wall, pale under the visor, still firing one-handed when cutters skittered too close. Doc hovered, trying to look busy, trying not to look scared. The first sign something was wrong came from the comms. Static bled into the channel, chewing up words until they were just noise. The uplink light flickered. I tapped my HUD. No signal. "Lines jammed," Rhea said, eyes never leaving her sightline. "Extraction's not coming," Sarge answered, like he'd expected it. "We move on our own feet." The bugs must have felt it. They poured in, not as a wave, but in bursts, ambushes, a cutter springing from a collapsed pod, biting into a throat before we could blink. A spitter hosing the trench from a ridge, acid raining into the sand like hot rain. One warrior hit from the flank, jaws clamping a soldier's arm clean off. The arm kept firing, finger locked on the trigger, until the magazine clicked empty. We fell back into the ruins of a mining colony half buried in sand. Corridors narrow, walls scarred with claw marks. The place smelled like rust and wet stone. Our boots echoed too loud. Paranoia set in quick. Every shadow looked like it twitched. Every pipe hiss was chittering. "They're coordinating," Doc whispered. "They don't think," Rhea muttered. "Tell that to the one that flanked us," he shot back. I didn't say a word, because I'd noticed it too. How the cutters came in pairs now, how spitters timed their volleys with the warriors' charges, not random, deliberate. We found a chamber that might have been a garage once. Ceiling cracked open to the sky, beams sagging. We stacked crates, barrels, anything that could stop a charge. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I slammed a mag home. Outside, the chittering grew louder, hundreds of voices clicking together. Sarge stood at the front, rifle low. His tone was the same as always. "Hold this line. Doesn't matter what it costs." And then the walls shook. The bugs came all at once, pouring through broken windows, bursting from tunnels under the floor. Claws slashed, acid sprayed, and the barricades went fast. Rhea's fire was surgical, cutting heads in the dark. Vex just screamed and carved with his cannon until the belt went dry. I slipped in gore, fell hard, visor cracking spider webs. A warrior loomed, mandibles wide. I fired from my back, shots hammering its throat until it collapsed across me, hot blood burning through the armor. I shoved it off, breath coming ragged. When the wave finally broke, the floor was a carpet of twitching bodies. My ears rang. My mag was empty. Half the squad didn't rise. Extraction wasn't coming. Sarge's voice cut through the ringing. "We fall back again. Next ridge. Move." We moved. What was left of us, dripping, shaking, but still breathing. Behind us, the mining colony settled into silence. A silence that didn't last, because out on the horizon, the dunes moved. Thousands of shapes crawling, steady and certain. The hive wasn't done, not close. We made it to the ridge at dawn. The sun came up red, bleeding across the dunes, and for a second I thought maybe light would save us. Then I saw what waited below. The extraction zone was gone. Just a crater full of broken gear and corpses. Helldivers twisted into shapes armor shouldn't bend. No shuttle, no signal, nothing. Sarge stood there a long moment, rifle low. "This is it," he said. No anger, no panic, just fact. The chittering rose behind us, rolling like surf. The swarm was coming, thicker than anything yet. Thousands, maybe more. Cutters in endless lines, spitters dripping, warriors stomping. The horizon itself moved. "Set your gear. Burn everything," Sarge ordered. We stacked crates, primed grenades, lined satchels in the sand. Rhea climbed to a broken tower and set her sight line. Vex braced his cannon across a collapsed beam, last belt hanging like a promise. Doc patched Nix one more time and propped him up with a spare rifle. Even pale and half dead, Nix grinned weakly. "For Super Earth," he whispered. Then they came. The ground shook as the first wave hit. Cutters poured over the ridge, a living carpet. We opened fire, guns blazing until the barrels smoked. My rifle kicked steady, bursts boring holes through faces that kept coming. The air filled with the stink of acid and meat. A spitter glob splashed beside me, burning a hole straight through the sandbag wall. The heat seared my leg through the suit. I screamed but kept firing, vision tunneling. Vex laughed, loud and mad, cutting warriors in half until the belt snapped empty. He drew a sidearm, screaming curses, until claws tore him from the barricade. His laugh cut off like a switch. Rhea called targets calm as ever, headshots dropping bugs one after another. Then the tower she was on collapsed under a warrior's charge. Dust swallowed her. I never saw her again. Doc dragged Nix back, firing one-handed. Acid sprayed across his shoulder, armor smoking. He didn't even flinch, just kept pulling the trigger until a spear bug punched through his chest and pinned him to the wall. "Go," he choked, blood filling his mic. Then he went still. I was alone. The swarm closed in, endless. My rifle clicked empty. I drew grenades, yanked pins, and hurled them into the tide. Bodies flew, sand burned black, but it didn't matter. More came, always more. I slipped on entrails, landed hard, hands covered in gore. I screamed, rage and terror tangled, and picked up Doc's rifle. I fired until the barrel glowed red, until my arms shook too bad to hold it. The swarm broke the line. Claws scraped my visor. Mandibles snapped inches from my throat. I swung the stock like a club, cracked a cutter's skull, and slipped in its blood. I fumbled for one last grenade, yanked the pin, then the sky split. A roar like the end of the world tore through the ridge. White light swallowed everything, heat slamming into my chest plate and hurling me backwards. The swarm shrieked as one, their bodies burn in mid-leap, acid boiling in the air. The ground convulsed, and I hit hard, helmet cracking, world turning sideways. I remember smoke, a ringing in my skull, then nothing. I woke choking on dust and smoke. My visor was cracked, blood dried across the inside. Every breath hurt. The battlefield around me was unrecognizable, just heaps of burned chitin, steaming pools of acid, armor plates twisted into junk. I tried to stand. My legs didn't listen at first. When I finally staggered upright, I saw the ridge where we'd made our stand. Nothing left. Not Vex's laugh, not Ria's calm shots, not Doc's steady hands, not Nix's grin. Just silence. A shuttle's searchlight cut through the haze. Another squad. Fresh, armored, clean. They pulled me up like I weighed nothing. My HUD flickered red warnings, then flatlined. One of them asked, "What happened here?" I couldn't answer. My throat was raw, my head full of screams and gunfire. All I managed was a whisper. We never stood a chance. As the shuttle lifted, I looked out across the horizon. The sun hung low, the dunes glowing gold, and beneath that beauty, I saw them. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Bugs moving like a tide, climbing dunes in waves, mandibles glinting in the light. The war wasn't ending. We hadn't won. All we'd done was buy 12 hours,